What's going on? This is the Snodgrass podcast. I want to welcome you to today's episode. I have Bear Woznik on this particular episode with me, and Bear is like he's a man. He loves adventure. He does motorcycles. He's a world tandem surfing champion, black belt, amazing husband and father of 5 kids, and he's written some books. He has The Deep Adventure, The Way of the Heroic Virtue, and he has other books on his website. He also is coming out with a book called The 12 Rules of Manliness. Where have all the cowboys gone? So this is just a great show that Bear really simplifies it down to what does it take to be a man in our culture today. And this isn't what you think, guys. So I really want you to hear this, that if you're a man or a woman that has a man in your life, this is a great episode for you to figure out, what does it look like to stand up for as a man in today's culture? What does it look like to have a code with your other brothers in your life? What does it look like to get around other men and just be real with each other and not have to put on the masks? And this is what Bear really talks about today. It's a great podcast episode. And speaking of that, if you are a man and you want to go over to our website at Iron Deep, I would encourage you to do that. We have 2 events coming out this year. The first one is the Men's Awakening. So it's going to be June 25th through the 28th, 2023. And it's going to be in northern Georgia in the mountains. We rented out this amazing place called the Bison View Lodge, and it's going to be a Men's Awakening retreat, and it's for men, business owners, and I would love for you guys to check that out. So check that out on our website at irondeep.com. And also check out our YouTube channel. We got some other videos coming out there. And if you want to join our newsletter, again, you can check that out at irondeep.com. So thank you guys so much. And here now is Bear Woznik. What's going on, Bear?
Aloha, Brett. Good to talk to you.
Yeah, you too. You're from Hawaii. So yeah, aloha.
Yeah, I'm looking
And
out my window right now. I can see a fading south swell. It's kind of an unusual time of year to have good surf. But I had a couple of Catholic priests visiting this week, and I took them out surfing. And while we were out and about, we were kind of out beyond the break. All of a sudden, for some reason, the south swell started filling in, and they kind of had a sort of a bucking bronco moment out there. They're from Wyoming and Montana, but yeah, so it's a beautiful time of year here in Hawaii.
yeah, that's amazing. And I love how you use a lot of surfing terms, because I think that's been just a huge part of your life, right? I mean, just talk to us about that a little bit, because when I'm reading over who Bear Woznik is, there's probably 12 different times you mentioned surfing, tandem surfing, and talk to us about that, like your passion for surfing.
Well, I'll tell you, it was started as a young kid. I mean, I just remember being in Santa Cruz, California, and just loving the ocean, playing with the ocean. But there became kind of a moment in my life when I was about maybe 12 years old or so, 13 years old, when I used to always love to build impenetrable sand castles, and try to make them so the ocean couldn't sweep them away. And I would engineer the whole thing, but I would come back in the morning, they'd be gone.
Mm-hmm.
The waves swept them away. And I kind of had this thought that, I had that moment of sort of epiphany of knowing that the waves have been coming and going since long before I was alive, and they would still be breaking after I was gone, long gone, like those sand castles. And then I remember seeing a sailboat go out over the horizon, that 8-mile distance you can see from the beach.
Mm-hmm.
And I had that sense of, I guess, infinity, that it was going a long, long ways away from where I could be. So I had that kind of sense of smallness, but I knew from my Catholic teaching that the nuns, especially, teaching me that I was made for a purpose, and it was to have a relationship, to know, love, and serve God in this world. So I felt small, but I did not feel unimportant. I knew that I had a great value to God. And so from that moment, it was a holy grail moment. From that moment, I began to have this leaning towards God, leaning into God, wanting to have a personal walk with him, wanting to know him, not knowing if that was even possible. But I was just amazed at the eternal and the infinite attributes of God. So surfing then became a lot more of just going out and playing. It became really an expression of that pursuit.
Yeah. I mean, I love how you said that. Sometimes, like when I'm around the ocean, again, I feel so small. It's so mysterious, such a world that I don't even know what is, we haven't even touched the surface of the mystery of that. And to see, God created that and it's so big. And then we look up and we see the stars and God cast all those out and it's so big
Yeah,
and we can't even fathom that. Yet,
yeah.
you are very significant because you are his masterpiece, which I think is amazing. Like he created all that, but he says, you literally Bear Woznick is his masterpiece and I am his masterpiece. So that's amazing. So yeah, I mean, you're an avid surfer. You do have done TV, radio, and you're kind of like this manly man. I mean, your name's even Bear. Like I think about, wow, I'm gonna interview Bear. Like you have this manly man, deep adventure, motorcycle riding, surfing guy, and you've also decided that that's what you really want to do. You want to pour into men, right? And so talk to us about that. Like, was that a light bulb that went off? Like, because you're doing all these different things, but then when did you come to the moment you're like, you know what, I really want to pour into other men?
It's just that, like my world championship is in tandem surfing, where I lift my wife over my head, and we met on a tandem surfboard. That's how we got to know each other, and so, the adventures I've pedaled my bicycle across the United States. I'm a ninja black belt. I've paddled this treacherous Kiwi channel, this 30-mile channel on my surfboard. Ran with the bulls. I repelled out of this 25th story condo. So I mean, all that adventure is really kind of outside in type of adventure training in the virtue of fortitude and prudence in those types of adventures. But really, the great adventure, my personal creed is that the most radical quest you can have in life is to abandon yourself to God's will. So paddling into a big wave, there's a moment once you drop over that precipice, it owns you. Mm. And that's that kind of radical commitment to Christ that opens up the door, because once you're in God's will, you get to see God do stuff and you get to do stuff with him. But if you're not in God's will, if you're not abandoned to God's will, you don't get to see it. And so I think one of the greatest quests that a man can have is that abandonment to God. And of course, one of the greatest quests of all is to be a husband and a father. To be called father is an amazing thing because God is father. He eternally begot his son. So it came to a point, it was just kind of an interesting transition that took place, that I actually had women come up and ask me would I talk to their husbands about being a man. And I'm like, I don't know how to do that, but it just kind of, that's just what happened. It's not like I focused on that. That's what came to me. That's what happened.
So let's stop there. I mean, what was it about you that you think that other women, not your wife, other women came up to you and you're like, hey, can you help my husband be a little man? What did they see in you?
Well, I think that my wife, Cindy, she's an amazing woman, full of grace. She likes men. She likes men that are men. Like when we went on a trip to Ireland, there are men there. They're tough, they're gritty, they're raw, and they're real. The other, when we are here in Hawaii, there's a tribe here in Hawaii, and it's the waterman community. The ancient watermen of Hawaii. We're more of the ocean than of the land. And the waterman community, we surf, we sail, we spearfish, we do everything on the ocean, in the ocean, and we just go to the land to kind of sleep. But in that going out into the deep together like that, no one really knows what everybody's job is. No one cares where everyone lives. We're here in this water together, and it forms a bond. And she can see there's a manly bond. In fact, the younger men call me uncle, whether they've ever met me or not. And so it just seems that men have. Here's the thing I hear men say: "Oh, we've been marginalized. They make fun of us. They made us, they marginalized us. They pushed us to the curb." Excuse me, that sounds like a victim talking. That's not true. We've let that happen because we haven't been man enough to fight. And I think one of the greatest kuleanas, as we say in Hawaii, kind of a stewardship or a responsibility that we have is not to apologize for being a man. Now, that doesn't mean machoism, but it does mean being tough. And so I think women look at me and they go, oh, look how he every now and then gives his wife a little flower while he's walking along the. Look how he holds her hand. Look how he every now and then gives her a kiss, lifts her hands up and kisses. I tenderly love my wife.
Mm.
But they also know that she's protected, and they know that she doesn't have to worry about really her own care. She takes care of me in ways that are unbelievable. She just takes care of she does so much for me. But they know that I'm not going to apologize for being a man. That doesn't mean this macho stuff, but it does mean laying down my life and being willing to. And it does mean servant leadership. And it does mean holiness. And it does mean seeing her as being sacred. So I think they're just tired of it. I'll tell you what, I have this thing called the Man Cave. It's my website, deepadventure.com. And the men join, and once a month, we do a Zoom meetup. And then we have the 3-year curriculum, the Bear School of Manliness, which is kind of based on the School of the Prophets of Obadiah. One of the first things we ask men to do when they join is fitness to witness. Are you fit? If someone came to if you were in a situation tomorrow where you had to physically protect your family, could you last 60 seconds? Just physically, could you last 60 seconds? So we talk about the men being able to be dangerous in extent. If they needed to be, are they able to defend their family? Are they able to defend their faith? Have they, Jesus said, Peter said, have a reason for the hope. Do you have a reason? Do you know how to express your faith? My mother used to say Christianity is a elevator religion. You can tell the basics of it from the time you get on the elevator to the time you get off. But when people have those hard questions, do you have a reason for your faith? More importantly than the reason, do you have a personal witness that you can share? Are you bold enough to share? You get that nudge from the Holy Spirit. I had this beautiful, beautiful priest here with us this week whose father abandoned them when they were children. And when I see him offering up Mass, it's as if I'm seeing him see the beatific vision. He's so in love with the Lord. But I wondered, has anybody ever said to him, I'm proud of you? I told him, I'm proud of you. You gave a homily that went against the woke culture, and I know you're taking a lot of heat from it. I'm proud of you. Older men need to uncle other men. We need to say to them, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. We need to reinforce them. When I see a young man with a baby walking along the street here in Waikiki with his wife, I say, I'm proud of you. A beautiful family, I'm proud of you.
Wow.
So men need to affirm the younger men and let them know it's good to be a man. And women will come up to Cindy and I when we go to when I speak someplace. They'll grab us before we get in the door. You need to tell these men to be men. Women want men to be men, and there's so many men out there basically cowards. They think it's a partnership with their wife, or they both have to make the income, and it's good for a woman to make income. I'm not saying that. Or the younger men, they don't ask girls out on dates, or if they do, they never ask them to marry them, or if they ask them to marry them, they never get married.
Yeah,
they're cowards.
Yeah, they don't pursue.
Yeah, they're absolutely. There's a scripture verse. I think the angel of the Lord said to Joseph, do not be afraid to take Mary to you as your wife. And men, the younger men, and in the churches are filled with people living together that aren't even married. So, we need to have men go back to being virtuous, justice, self-mastery, prudence, fortitude, faith, hope, and love. Build that inner man, and you establish that in an hour every day with the Lord, and you spend it with other men, like-minded men. Be careful who you associate with.
No, I love that. I love what you just really said about how you're treating your wife, serving her, doing things for her, and being that servant leader. Because a lot of times when we talk about men, that macho man, sometimes we forget about all that. I was with a married couple, and they were kind of like interacting in the way you just described. He was, very soft with her and took care of her. But then he looked at like me in the face and he was just talking about if anyone really comes at my wife or disrespects my wife or I will hurt them. He says something like that.
Here's an example. We're in an airport lounge, and this guy is cussing right next to me, using foul language. And I do it more often than that. But I just said, "Excuse me," and he's talking with another woman present. Who's cussing herself. And I just said, "Excuse me, but there's a lady present. Can you
Mm.
moderate? Can you change your language?" And it really shocked him.
Mm.
It really shocked that woman too, because I called my wife a lady.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, things like that. And I tell you, when we walk in certain areas, my wife is very careful. What we switch sides when we walk down the street, depending on who's coming our way.
Mm.
It's very, and it's almost like we're doing a dance. We don't even think about it, but she knows that. And my wife's a tough chick. She's a rodeo girl. She tandem serves with me, holding her over my head. Right? I call her TC, but she know, and people kind of know probably not to mess with her.
Mm. Yes. Well, I know you do a lot of speaking, men's conferences. You're coming out with a book actually. It's called "Where Have All the Cowboys Gone? 12 Rules of Manliness." Can we talk about that a little bit? So I guess where have all the cowboys gone? What
Mm.
is happening? And I know like our culture, we're feminizing men, right?
Yeah,
We're not allowed to be men anymore, and we kind of
we are.
know all
Yeah,
we kind of
yeah.
know all that stuff, but even a lot of people, Christians, they're not raising their hand for that. They're not saying, "Oh, I don't want all that gender stuff." But still, you're saying that they're still not. Where have the cowboys gone, and what's going on?
Yeah, by the way, I should say I have a couple of other books, A Surfing Guide to the Soul and Deep Adventure, The Way of Heroic Virtue. But where have all the cowboys gone is you look at the school boards. Who's on the school boards? Why aren't our men running for school boards?
Mm,
It's one thing to sit in front of your television and have an opinion about pro-life and yell at the TV. That's not being pro-life. That's not doing anything.
yeah.
But do you go in front of an abortion clinic and pray? Like my friend Mark Hoke, you may have heard about him. He just got acquitted for something that happened in front of an abortion clinic. I'm going to be speaking with him in Indiana, by the way, in about 2 weeks, St. Leon. But uh, join your church advisory committee. Teach catechism or Sunday school. If there isn't a young adult group there, start one. If there isn't a men's group in your area, start one. Men need to be not just have opinions, but they need to do something.
Mm,
I have a, I have a, I had some land in Montana up by 2 miles from Canada, up by Glacier Park, North Fork of the Flathead River. And when I bought that land, it was raw land; it had never been used. So I walked onto my land the first time, and immediately saw a lone wolf, a gray wolf across this little open meadow, and it was like, "What do you do?" He was like, "What are you doing on my land?" Those green yellow eyes, you could
mhm.
see them from that far. And I found, and every now and then I would come across him on my land or in his land, and I met a professor who tracked mountain lions, grizzly bears, and wolves in that area. And I said that wolf looked pretty gnarly, but he looked a little bit scrawny. And he
Mm,
said, "Well, that's a lone wolf. A lone wolf is a wolf that used to be an alpha male and got forced out.
mm,
And he's starving to death because wolves hunt in packs.
yeah.
He just gets the leftovers. And there's so many men out there that are lone wolves, and they think it's macho,
Yeah.
and they've isolated themselves. I had a friend of mine, Father Bryce Lundgren. He actually has a working ranch in Wyoming, and he has a couple parishes there. He was here this last week. They just left yesterday. He was saying, "Hey, if I was riding my horse out on the range with Zeke, my buddy, and I said, 'Hey, brah, we need to,' or bro, I guess he would say, 'we need to be more vulnerable with each other,' he would gallop away.
Hmm.
But if I said to him, 'We need to be more raw and real with each other,' men need to be able to get raw and real with each other and talk story with each other. If you're a man and you don't have vital fellowship with other strong Christian men, you're a lone wolf, and that's a very dangerous place to be.
Mm, mm,
You need to be you need to be, even Jesus had his pack, his
mm.
12.
Yeah. That's awesome. I mean, I totally agree. I love what you said about vulnerability. Yeah, because that sometimes scares men off. But they do want to be real. They don't want to.
All right.
They just want to be themselves. So, what have you kind of done to kind of get around other men? What have you seen happen? I mean, where does that first step? Because you're right. There's a lot of lone wolves out there. Like, man, I want that, but like, I don't know. My church doesn't really get me, and um,
Doesn't that sound weak and pathetic?
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I tried to start a men's group at the church right next to where I
Mhm.
live. But that pastor is like, no, I don't want to rock the boat. But guess what? We did start three other groups here on this island. Other men.
Mhm.
So I'm just saying, if you're a man, you're a leader. Question is, where are you leading people?
Mm.
Are you leading them into a nice, comfortable couch, or worse, into other areas? If you don't have a men's group that you're a part of, get one other man, start having breakfast together once a week at 6 a.m. Before
Mm.
you get up early so you don't disrupt what the family needs from you, but start having what we do is we have a cigar night once a month.
Mm.
Have a shot of whiskey and a cigar, and we don't talk about politics and we don't talk about sports, but we talk about uh, real stuff.
Mm.
We have a theme for the night. But if you're a man and you're a lone wolf, first of all, be careful whose company you keep, because you're exactly who's. I have a friend who was the pastor, Southern Baptist minister. He was a pastor of the Miami Hurricanes when they had their championship basketball and football
Mhm.
teams, and he makes the statement. We had a guy that was kind of, sometimes there's people that just kind of hangers on,
Mhm.
and he just was not. He was just negative and disrespectful of women and stuff like that, and Gerard just told me, what, that guy's not on my championship diet.
Mm.
And there's some people that it's not like you don't want to evangelize, but when the people are just hanging on and sapping you of your vitality, um, there's a point when you need to, just like Psalm 1, I think it says, don't hang around in the company of scoffers.
Mhm.
Choose well whose company you keep, and then cultivate the relationship with two or three men, maybe 10 or 12 men. And if you don't have a men's group, start one. We have
Mm.
one. People can go on our website and we can help them. But there's so many great men's things. You don't even have to have a formal thing. Just get together for breakfast, maybe read a book together,
Mhm.
over the months. But men need to be with other men. They just need to be in the company of other men.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And like I said, sometimes we overcomplicate it. You don't have to have this huge program, and I think some structure is good, but you don't have to have that. You talk about maybe the code. I think before this show, you're talking about kind of a man's code and things like that. Do you want to dive into that a little bit, like because I know that you talk about that
Yeah.
in some of your radio and TV and books and stuff. So.
Well, my boyhood hero, his statue is about a block from my house.
Mm.
Duka Hanamoku. His creed was, I give by aloha. And the creed for our state was from King Kamehameha. It, it's, well, I can say it in Hawaiian, Uamau keika ana ikapono. What it means is, by
Mhm.
righteousness the land is established. That's a creed. And then you need to have a code. I'm a Benedictine oblate. So Saint Benedict, back around the year 500, he produced what he calls, it's called the Rules of Saint Benedict. Here are rules that the monks should live by. Now I live in the real world, but there are rules. There's guides. There's a code that I live by. So man should be able to write like a one or two sentence creed. This is what I stand for, and of course it'll change over time. And then he should be able to know, what, I'm gonna be fit. I'm gonna treasure my wife. I'm gonna invest in I'm gonna be a father. Of course, you expand on those things, but you should have then a list of code. I mean, the Marines have a code of
Mhm.
conduct.
Yeah.
Uh, but the you should have it written down. So there's a verse in Habakkuk. Write the vision down in words big enough so the one who's reading it can run while he's reading.
Mm.
We should know who we are. We should have a philosophy of how we live. We should crystallize that thinking. And then here's the thing: have that discussion with your son.
Mm.
Like our School of Manliness, we have that curriculum for the men, but the sons also join. They can't be part of our man cave where the men all talk, but the father has that relationship with the son and talks about these. They watch a video together and then they talk story about what that means. I was we were in Napa about 4 years ago, And someone asked Archbishop Chaput, who's a real powerful Christian, real dedicated, devoted Christian, what is the best evangelistic program? What are the two or three really good evangelistic programs that we can kind of get involved in? And he said, "Oh, get married, have lots of children, bring them up in the Lord."
Mm.
That's the domestic church. If you're a father, bring the church right into your home. Do you have times of prayer? If your kids woke up early, would they see you having your Bible prayer time? Would they see you leading them in prayer after before you eat? In the Catholic Church, we have a tradition of afterwards praying the Rosary after dinner. How are you being the we know you're supposed to be the provider and the protector. Are you a priest in your home too? Lead your family, lead your family into a regular time of development. As a dad, there's a scripture verse that says, "While you're on the way, teach your children while you're on the way with them, while you're by the river." Do you take your kids to the hardware? You grab one of your kids when you go to the hardware store. When you're at the hardware store, you could look at a tool or something. You could tell them, "Well, here's a lesson. Here's tools that are very effective." The Bible's an effective tool too. So is prayer. In other words, while you're on the way with them, teach them their faith and teach them virtue.
I love that. And I know that you have been married to Cindy and have 5 adult children now. And that's one thing I think that I have 4 children, and I'm always thinking about how to pour into my wife and to my kids. But I love what you say, just to simplify it down, just to take them along the way with you. And is there some stories, maybe just from your own life, that some examples that you did that with your own kids?
Well, too, it is so true too. And you know what? The time that you have that to influence your children is over in a heartbeat. So ground them like it. Well, I just always took one of my sons, he loved to surf. So when I go on surf trips, when my oldest son, he would go with me. When he got to that age, a certain age, one of my sons, I went to compete in France, and we in a whole week long competition. I took him along with me, and it was interesting because he got to see a different sort of life and kind of, it kind of challenges what your presuppositions are, and just to have dialogue with him. But a lot of it was just, I used to take him I used to take him up into the mountains at night. I had the habit of, this marriage, by the way, is my second marriage. My first one that I had my 4 children with, that was a broken marriage, and the Catholic Church in time gave me an annulment so that I could remarry. But during the time when I was raising my children by myself, I would get them all their homework, put them into bed, and then I'd go. They were old enough where I could leave. They were in high school and younger. But so when I got them into bed, I would go hiking to the mountains at night. That was my time of spending time with the Lord. And I remember, in particular, one time Hale-Bopp the Comet was out at that time, so I'd hike under Hale-Bopp. But I would take them with me sometimes too. When about sunset, we'd go up into the mountains. And I'd take them into areas, because the hiking trail was right outside my house. This is when I lived in California 25 years ago. But I would take them into the trails, and I'd say, who else is up here? Who else gets to see the stars like this without the light pollution? Who else gets to see the beautiful city light below us? You have to make an effort. You have to take a different path. You have to in order to experience this, So I would just teach them. I trained all my kids in martial arts, 2 of them halfway to black belt, 2 of them all the way to black belt, and I tested them for the black belt. So that's a real interactive thing. If you want to know what that's, if you want to be interactive, I taught all my kids to surf. If a guy's a Green Bay Packer fan, or what do you have? The Cincinnati Bengals out there.
Yeah, we got Cincinnati, Indianapolis Colts. Yep.
I've heard of them. So I bet if the dad's a Bengals or a Colts fan, so's their sons, so's their daughters. Take that energy and think of that in other areas with your children. I'm not very good at teaching them math, but I can teach them practical things. I mean, I'm kind of good at math, but I don't like teaching it. I don't have the patience to teach, but I can take them along with me. I coach their football team. I refuse to coach soccer.
I understand.
but I would, I'd be an assistant coach or something. I was there. I was engaged in their data. Just find ways to get involved with your daughters and with your sons, and lead
Yeah.
them by example, because pretty soon they're gone.
Yeah.
And if whatever you have that short time to instill in them.
Yeah. Definitely. And I keep coming back. You gave them a lot of different experiences. I mean, you did things, just, the simple things, just life things, but you also giving them those different experiences, getting them out of their world, right?
Right.
Getting
Right.
their perspective in a different way. So that's awesome, Bear. Well, Bear, I know we're about out of time for the show. Just loved having you on the podcast today. And do you have like a date when your new book's coming out?
I think it's going to come out in May, and I think they're going to call it 12 Rules for Manliness.
Mm-hmm.
Where have all the cowboys gone? They switched the title around because they know best.
Yeah, I understand.
We're super excited about it. But my other two books, if you go to Bear Woznik on Amazon, you'll see the other two books. The one on Deep Adventure, The Way of Heroic Virtue, is particularly good for fathers to read. The chapters are very short, and they can read them, like after dinner with their
Mm-hmm.
family, or during dinner with their family,
Mm-hmm.
things like that, or especially taking their sons aside. So
Yeah.
we're so glad. Christians need to stick together now
Yeah.
more than ever. Men need to stick together, and when we have our TV show, our motorcycle TV show, Long Ride Home, it's on Prime Video, and it's on and you people can go to my website and subscribe, and they can get it there too. But half of our bikers were Protestant and half were Catholic. I
Mm.
made a point. We need to Christians need to come together. We need to
Yeah, we
stand
do.
strong. Yeah.
Yeah, we do. That's awesome. Well, I know that you have so much to offer too. Again, like your website, is it just your name, Bear Woznik Adventure?
Oh no, it's
Deep
deepadventure.com.
Adventure. So deepadventure.com, check that out. And I think you can probably get your books, check out your motorcycle TV show on Prime. That's awesome. Well, thanks.
Long ride home with Bear, and yeah, our YouTube site is Deep Adventure dash Bear Wozniak, and we have tons of teaching.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Well, if you're a man out there, or even a woman that has a man in your life, I would just really encourage you just to take that first step. Take that first step and getting around other men. What does that look like for you? Because we got to stick together, right? So, thank you so much, Bear, for being on the podcast today. Appreciate you, buddy.
Hey, my brother, ahui ho, aloha.